Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Allie Cantu, and I'm one of the registered dietitians here with the chef program at the San Antonio Food Bank. Welcome to the third class of our Nutrition Through Cancer. So we're going to be able to just kind of recap a little bit since this is the third class of our series. I know I've seen most of you for the first couple of classes, so I just wanted to recap what we've already gone over. Can anyone tell me what that very first class we talked about? We were focusing on three components, especially when working with cancer. We're wanting to focus on three components in nutrition. Your gut, okay. So definitely something that we're focusing on, addressing our gut health. But so plant-based, yep. So the three components that we were talking about were calories. We want to make sure we're getting enough calories. We want to make sure we're getting enough protein. And then also our vitamins and minerals. And so that's where it comes in. But that's where the gut health comes in. Our vitamins and minerals, all of these ingredients, again, are going to feed our gut. So we are wanting to focus on our gut health. And we actually, in our chef program, again, chef stands for the Culinary Health Education for Families. And we have a whole program on our gut-brain connection. So I would love to hopefully maybe in April to do that series of 4 classes. It's the gut-brain connection, talking about how not only does our brain talk with our gut talk with our brain, and how our mental health is tied in with what we're eating too. So just a little tidbit of that. But again, so those 3 components, we also talked, our 3 components are nutrition, physical activity, and our support group. And of course, Thrive Well is a perfect support group here. I love all that you are doing, whether it's exercise or galas or a cooking class like today with us. So again, meeting those 3 components. And then last week we did talk about the new American plate. Again, that's created by the American Institute of Cancer Research, and it talks about, like Bronte, you were saying, so the 2/3 plant-based, 1/3 animal-based items. And whenever we're building our plate, we want to kind of break it up that way. So if we had our plate here, dividing it up like a peace sign, and then we want 2/3 of it to be plant-based products. Again, we're going to get those vitamins and minerals that help us also promote healing and prevent cancer and recurrence. And then that 1/3 is that animal-based, so whether that be our protein, or if we're looking at also any of other like toppings. I know we use a lot of dairy and yogurts and cheeses in our chef recipes, so that can count as our 1/3 portion of it too. Have y'all been thinking about the 2/3, 1/3 kind of portion when you're at home? What does that look like right now for anyone for breakfast or lunch yesterday?
Sometimes I have a little empty spot.
An empty spot?
But I didn't feel one of them in.
Got it, okay.
But at least I realize, because there's an empty spot, that I'm missing something.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking
2/3,
yeah.
1/3. I love it. Okay, so now we're at least just putting it into practice a little more. I saw a hand go up over here. What are you doing?
I usually do like a whole avocado. I slice the avocado and
Okay.
then I do yogurt.
Okay.
Because, I can't eat eggs, so
Okay.
breakfast is kind of hard to find protein enough with eggs.
Right.
You get a sausage, but it's just kind of weird. So.
So you're doing some of the yogurt to get your protein in the day. Okay, I love it. That's awesome. Anyone else?
I just,
Oh,
I just kind of
Yeah.
find that, I mean, like, I love, like, salads and stuff like that,
yeah.
but, I like real protein. So I just feel like now
Yeah.
I'm getting into, like, more, like, starchy stuff, and I've never been, like blue potatoes
Okay.
and then, like, breads, like, you know what I mean? Like, I just,
Yeah.
but now it's, like, to get that fullness or whatever, so.
hmm Adding in some more, you're saying like of the starchy foods to feel full? Definitely. So any of our like plant-based items, they're gonna be pretty high in fiber, which is really great because again, fiber helps us to feel full a little bit longer. It also has the added benefit of helping our digestion, but again, helping us to feel full longer. I know last week we did our tofu, mango, avocado, and cucumber salad. So I get what you're saying. The tofu texture, I know it can be different. I gotcha. The tofu, again, is that plant-based. If we are using animal-based or any other animal products like a dairy or a cheese, and we're wanting to maybe cut out the animal sources of protein, we can always turn to plant sources. But I definitely not everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. Edith, do you have a way that you're working on it?
For breakfast, since coming here now, I've been adding, like I do oatmeal.
Okay.
And I've been adding walnuts to kind of get a little protein, I guess you call it in there.
Yeah.
And cranberries or raisins.
Okay.
Almond milk, so I can kind of get around it.
Awesome. Just keep it a little more balanced. I think that's wonderful. Yeah. And cinnamon. Cinnamon, I love it because it's not adding any extra sugar, but it's still giving you kind of a sweetness or a warmness to the dish. So I love it. Awesome. Well, today for this third lesson, we're diving into food safety. So maybe not the most glamorous or fun types of topics to talk about, but I do want to cover food safety, especially throughout your cancer treatment, wherever you're at. Food safety is especially important because we see, again, wherever you're at in treatment, particularly in the initial stages, any type of treatment, whether it being surgery, chemo, radiation, actually decreases your immune system's response. So I know I see a lot of heads. This probably sounds familiar. And so I just wanted to cover the nutrition topics or the nutrition ways we can make sure to maintain our safety, because foodborne illnesses are not only one of the most common types of illnesses, especially during the holidays, that we see people going to the hospital with, but again, it can also make your recovery period a little bit more challenging in that process. So again, a foodborne illness, we can think of it as any bacteria, as any viruses or pathogens that are growing in our food. So that can be either whether we didn't store it properly or correctly, or it can even start at the grocery store. So I want to walk through the whole process, grocery store, all the way through until we are storing our food at home, we're preparing our food, and then again, just following that process and where foodborne illnesses can come into play. Some of those symptoms with foodborne illnesses, and you maybe also see kind of my notes for today. Any foodborne illnesses, we see that looking like vomiting, diarrhea, any kind of flu-like symptoms, a little bit of like a chill, and then two, a pain in your abdomen. So I know, again, throughout treatment, you may also be feeling vomiting or diarrhea as a symptom from your treatment. So sometimes that can be a little bit difficult to tell, was it from your food or was it from your treatment? The way you can kind of start to distinguish if it is from food or a foodborne illness, we start looking, depending on when you eat something, it could happen about 20 minutes after. So I again, see some head nodding. That can be pretty quick. We probably all know the feeling of having to run to the restroom after eating something because it didn't sit well. But it could also be 1 to 3 days after eating contaminated food. There's even some prolonged effects. So I'm thinking of like botulism, mainly in honey. That can be up to 6 weeks later too that you see the effects. But usually 1 to 3 days is what we're seeing with the foodborne illness. If you are concerned, again, take extra precautions. Maybe clean out your fridge a little bit earlier than normal is what I would recommend. But again, this first key message I wanted to go over is that cancer patients, again, if you're undergoing any type of treatment, you have an increased risk of contracting foodborne illnesses. And again, especially due to your weakened immune system. So what are some of the tips or items that you work on when you go to the grocery store? What is kind of the first thing, if you are thinking food safety, what do you do at the grocery store to take a little precaution?
Well,
Anyone?
like clothes,
Uh-huh.
wipe down the parts.
I love
That's
that.
something, and it still like freaks me out. You know, when parents are giving their kids like a grape or something, like I'm like, it just freaks me out. Like,
Yeah.
you know, but that's one of the first things that I maintain.
Okay. I
And
love that. Wiping down the cart, probably not picking up produce right off the shelf and start eating it directly. Yeah, maybe not. Anyone else? Any other types of safety? And
I put my meat now in those little bags so that when I put it in the cart, because no matter how much the blood will seep out.
yes. And that, again, is one of the main ways of cross-contamination whenever we're talking about animal to plant-based. Again, like all of our produce that we see today, we're not going to cook any of it. And so imagine any of the juices from a meat got onto it, we're going to eat the meat juices essentially right in. And we may not even know because we're mixing it all together and making our pico and we're adding some seasoning to it. We're not going to know. So I love that. I always see at the grocery store, there's usually an extra bag, like a yellow bag. Make sure to put that in. Sometimes they even have a paper towel. You could put the paper towel in to catch the juices. We definitely want to be using those too. And always, yes, wash. If you use reusable bags, wash your bags. Always kind of use the same bag and put it at the bottom of your grocery cart. So another few items or just kind of reminders. So depending on the grocery store you go to, we'll sometimes see a bulk item. I know for me, I always see the pinto beans in bulk when I go to my grocery store. Try to avoid those because we don't know, again, who's putting their hands in there, what kind of contaminants can be growing in those bulk items. Same thing too with the bulk spices. Try to aim for those that are closed and sealed. So that's one item. And another two, I talk about dairy and eggs a lot because we love those types of ingredients in our chef recipes. And so with that, we want to make sure we're getting pasteurized eggs, pasteurized dairy products. So the pasteurization process, again, that is going all of our dairy products, whether it be cheese, milk, yogurt, and our eggs as well, they are heated quickly for about 15 seconds to 161 degrees, and then they're cooled right back down to underneath our temperature danger zone. So 39 degrees, and then it's safe. We know that most of the pathogens are going to be removed from it, so we're good to go. And that, again, is going to prevent any foodborne illness from growing. Also, to deli meats. Who here is a fan of like sandwiches or deli meats, eats hot dogs at home? I know we had President's Day yesterday. Any hot dogs yesterday?
I like the deli meats that, not the ones that are, that has all that stuff in there.
Uh-huh.
The ones like at the Super HEB where they make it themselves.
Okay. You
So,
kind of see them.
Yeah, it's just, it's fresh. It's
Right.
normally they only have like three, different kinds of turkey,
Uh-huh.
roast beef, and ham.
Okay.
So but that's what I try to do versus
Yeah.
the ones that are packaged. All that. So,
Yes. So definitely looking at the nutrition content. I love you're talking about the sodium in deli meats. So that is something, again, that we're just naturally going to see with our deli meats. But again, when we're thinking about that food safety, so any deli meat, any hot dog that we see is going to be prone to those foodborne illnesses. The way we can prevent that, of course, maybe going through a few extra steps, extra process, is to cook those deli meats. So you put them on a pan and saute them, or to kind of pan fry them a little bit. Again, hot dogs, submerging them in boiling water and cooking them for about 10 minutes or so, 5 to 10 minutes. We're aiming to remove any of those bacteria, those pathogens that can grow even in those, even in the way that they're processed. So that's just something when we're at the grocery store to think about. Any other thoughts, questions, or concerns on that?
you can't do that with the cheese or if you get some of the regular donuts, like the lunch and stuff like that. You can't
Yeah.
do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I know sometimes those deli meats take a few extra steps. The cheese, as long as it's a pasteurized type of cheese, then we're good to go and it's fine. But yeah, any of those deli meats, just kind of taking an extra process of cooking them out. So that's kind of what we import.
Between, say, cured especially when it comes to like the hot dogs.
Okay.
Like in the deli section, they'll have like the uncured. Is that more natural? Like what does that mean?
Cured versus uncured. So my understanding of cured is it's a process in order to, again, make sure like a removing contaminant process. Safer to get cured. And that's my understanding, but I could be wrong. I can double check on that too for you.
Uncured is more expensive.
Okay. Usually, yeah, my understanding is that it's the raw form for a cured. So you're kind of just getting it as is, being processed and packaged. But yeah. So now that we talk about storing food, who gets home sometimes and will leave things on the counter, or do you move it right into the refrigerator as soon as you get home?
I have two big dogs.
Can't leave anything out. Dogs will eat it all. I gotcha. So sometimes I know I'm kind of guilty of that too. I'm like, okay, I get home and I'm like, oh wait, I need to go clean up real quick. I need to go check on my garden and I need to go do a few things. I'm like, oh wait, I left the yogurt out. Or oh wait, there's still food and raw meat on the table. I need to go put that up. So that's just another way to think about it. As soon as you get home, try to put up any refrigerated products, refrigerated items. The way I remember, I can tell how it was stored at the grocery store is how we want to store it at home. So sometimes we'll see like mushrooms or the salad containers. Those are along the wall. They're usually in a refrigerated section, or you see the misters kind of coming out regularly. We want to do that at home. If it has the misters, usually that means we want to keep it moist, or maybe put it like a lot of fresh herbs. So like our cilantro, we may want to put it in a container or treat them like flowers. So that's just one way to think of it there. Yes. Perfect. Yeah, that's another, always looking at those use by, sell by dates, very important with it too. Yep. The cleaner. So, yeah, and that again is everyone's preference. I know throughout COVID we saw an increase in using baking soda or these detergents for washing your produce. So the USDA actually does not recommend using any type of soap. All you need is running water. You can use a clean scrubber, clean brush, and all it did, just make sure to rinse, scrub all of your produce on the outside. Now, produce that you're not going to necessarily eat the outside or the peel. So like our onion for today, we're not going to eat the peel, but because our knife cuts through the skin, we still want to at least have it rinsed to try to remove any extra. Sometimes there's a lot of like dirt on the outside. We want to remove that. We had a ton of dirt in our cilantro for today. So again, it can be a home for foodborne illness. So we want to remove all of that. Now, trick question or maybe a pop quiz for anybody. What is the temperature that we want our refrigerator to be at? 30s? 34? Anyone else? So we want our refrigerators to be below 40 degrees. So that goes because we talk about the temperature danger zone. So temperature danger zone is 40 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm talking about degrees Fahrenheit. So we want to keep everything below 40 degrees, so 39 and below. That's where we have this fridge thermometer come in handy. So everyone will be able to take one home today. And then I have tons extra. So if you have multiple fridges, you want to take some home for family or friends, you can do this. So the way this thermometer works is you can peel off the back, and it has a few extra food safety tips on the back. So you'll be able to take off the adhesive, and there's a sticky tape underneath it. You'll put it to your wall of your refrigerator and leave it for 2 hours, and then come back and check it. And so you should see, depending on the temperature, you should see that change color. So, yep. So if it's above the 39 degrees, it's going to say too warm, we got to lower our temperature, lower our fridge temperature to make sure that we're not harboring any foodborne illnesses, because that could be a big concern. So that's where this comes in handy. And then for our freezer, does anyone know the temperature for a freezer to keep that under?
Well, I know you don't want to get freezer. I don't know about.
Yeah.
Where it can go.
You don't want to have freezer burn, but you also want to make sure that it is staying frozen. So actually we want to keep it at 0 degrees Fahrenheit. So we want to keep our freezer at or below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's again, so I don't have a freezer thermometer, unfortunately. So if you put this in your freezer and it's lighting up, we have a concern. We should talk about it. But so that's just some ways to look at that. Again, anything below 40, we want 39 or below for our refrigerator, 0 and below for our freezer. And then a 2, just kind of, if you're noticing a lot of crystals on your food, that means it's probably seeing some freezer burn. Yeah, definitely.
So what's the rule of thumb for like to discard food? Mine is like 5 days.
Yes.
You're rid of it.
So 5 days is a great rule of thumb to go by, and it depends on the type of food that you have. So oftentimes we can see high protein foods or high sugar foods having higher bacteria growth. Again, bacteria love the sugar, and so any type of carbohydrate food, we could see that going bad a little bit quicker. And 2, if we have foods that oxidize, which means like it turns brown, so like our avocados, sometimes those are not going to last the 5 days. I know I'll have like guac from HEB, and within 2 days I got to finish it or share it with my family. If not, that goes bad, and you can just see the oxidation change. Doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad, but we can start to see it go bad quicker.
Like anything like a mayonnaise,
Yep.
a couple days, I think.
Yeah. Any like salads, chicken salad, tuna salad, using that mayo in it. Again, it's going to have, so in mayo, we use a lot of egg yolks. And so again, that protein, it's going to cause it to rot a little bit faster. So just some things to keep in mind. So now when we're preparing food, we already mentioned some things like we want to make sure to wash our produce. We also always want to make sure to wash our hands. 20 seconds is the rule of thumb. Saying happy birthday to yourself every day, every time you're washing. But also to remember that whenever you are touching ingredients, we want to make sure that we're washing in between each time. So if it is going from a raw item to then a ready-made food, we want to make sure to wash our hands. Also using different cutting boards. So who has more than one cutting board at home? Awesome. Okay, I get mad at my partner for that because he has one cutting board at home and we'll use it for everything. So that's another thing to keep in mind. We can color code our cutting boards. So we'll see a green cutting board, usually for produce. We have a yellow for our poultry items, so any chicken or turkey, using that. And then our red meat can be a red cutting board, and then usually in a pack there's a 4th one, so white, you can use that for items that are ready-made. So thinking of like, again, cheeses or deli meats, anything like that we're cutting, but we necessarily are not going to cook. Yes? Plastic cutting boards. So that there is concern sometimes with a plastic cutting board. We do use like these mats here, and they are depending on the type of cutting board. Also being sure to throw it out regularly. So sometimes we'll see if it's an old cutting board that not only will parts of the plastic come off, or it can be cut through. So that's where we just want to make sure we're getting rid of our cutting boards regularly if we notice that it's kind of past its life, I'd say. Bamboo. So that's another one, and that's perfect that you brought it up because I was going to talk about wooden cutting boards next. So you can use bamboo. Bamboo would probably be the safest if you are doing wood. But we got to also think about wood. Wood is a very porous material. So again, think about those meat juices that we were talking about earlier. We're going to see those meat juices seep right into the cutting board. Unless if you're bleaching your cutting board regularly or cleaning it very thorough, there's a higher chance that foodborne illnesses or those pathogens can still reside within the cutting board of the meat. So just something to keep in mind. But yeah, any other questions with that? Yeah. Wooden spoon. So it depends. I would say actually put it in the dishwasher. Mm-hmm. So I would say put it in the dishwasher because it has a higher temperature and it'll also help to sanitize your product or your material quicker. The one issue with that is because it's wooden, it'll warp faster. So that means you're gonna have to go through a few more wooden spoons at home. So it's kind of the pros and cons of using wooden spoons at home. Ah. Huh. I could see that it maybe causes the spoon to warp more. So yeah, the more surface area, yeah, it can seep in a little bit more. Maybe the again, those juices. Yeah, so probably that. But I would say, or which kind of area of safety do you want to go? And if you do have wooden material at home, I would say run it through that dishwasher. Make sure you're using that sanitized cycle again because we're wanting to clean it as best as possible. So now we're talking about cooking and then also that storage life after. So who has a thermometer, food thermometer at home? Yeah? How often do we use it at home? All the time? Okay. And what do you usually are cooking or checking the temperature for?
My husband grills almost every night.
Okay.
So they can use it because
Okay.
I have this real sensitive stomach.
Exactly.
So if the food isn't cooked all the way, turkey, chicken, even your salmon and stuff like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also
Any?
make sure it's
Yes, which is perfect. So that's exactly what I was going to talk about too. So we talked about that temperature danger zone. 40 to 140 is where bacteria love and thrive in that type of environment. We want to talk about now, so what is a safe temperature to cook food to? So it sounds like you may be a pro at this already. So when we're cooking steaks, chops, roast of meat products, we want to get to 145 degrees Fahrenheit. Whenever we have ground meats or eggs, we want to check that to 160. And so I don't know about you, but for me, I don't check my eggs as often, but then I may overcook them just a little bit. So we want to make sure there's no running pieces of our yolk or of our egg whites. So that's kind of how I do it, just to make sure I'm not eating any raw items in that. But we could always go in and check it too. And then the last temperature to remember, so it's 145, 160, the last one 165. And so that's going to be for fish, pork, lamb and veal, as well as our poultry, and then any leftovers and casseroles too. So whenever we have a casserole, we want to go into the middle, the thickest part of our meat. Anytime we want to go to the thickest section, leave it for a second, and then check the temperature. Because if we go just to the outside of the meat or the item, it's not going to give us a temperature completely of the internal temperature of it. So that's just one to keep in mind. And then two, for leftovers, heating leftovers only one time. So if you have a large soup or a large dish or that casserole, portioning it out every time when you heat it and not heating it up altogether at once. And don't heat it in the microwave. The microwave can be an uneven heating of it. So especially in plastic. Okay, awesome. Yes.
So I've heard conflicting things about rice.
About rice.
People have said, don't keep rice because, I'm talking about in the fridge, once it's cooled in the fridge, because the bacteria grow.
Right.
And just eat it at one time. Other people keep their rice for a second time and then reheat it.
Mm-hmm.
What is your thought process on rice?
On rice.
For leftovers rice.
So
Finish it or keep it?
so it depends on if you're gonna have a day-old rice. We always hear use day-old rice, especially for like a fried rice, because we're gonna completely reheat it, cook it with additional ingredients. And so at that point, I would say that's okay. If we're keeping rice stored for long periods of time, I would say individually store it. Make sure to heat it up thoroughly to that 165 before using it. It just depends. Rice will dry out pretty quickly, and so it's a personal preference. I really will only keep rice 1 or 2 days, just because I'll go through it quickly, but I also don't want to keep it just sitting there for so long. So it just depends on person-to-person basis. I would say, again, if you are going to use it, make sure to reheat it completely. That day-old rice, we always hear about like a fried rice using it. So that would be okay because we're completely recooking it. But again, person-to-person basis. Does that help to answer your question? Yeah? Okay. And then to our temperature times. So how long are we leaving food outside of the refrigerator or outside of the freezer? So if it is a leftover food or if it's been recently prepared, it has a 2-hour maximum. So I just pulled this out right now at 10:30. All of our items, again, most of it is produce, but we do have some cheese in here, some rice and beans, and it was pulled out right at 10:30. So I'm looking at our clock, and we have to get moving here because if not, we have only about an hour left since it's about 11:35 right now. So again, 2-hour maximum time frame. Think of that too when you have leftovers. Continue to run errands. How long has it been in the leftover lunch in your car? If it's been longer than 2 hours, we want to get rid of it because the probability of having more foodborne illness and germs is going to be pretty high at that point. So just some things to keep in mind. And then if you are putting anything in the freezer, I say 3 to 4 months at most. I don't know how often we're cleaning out our freezer. I know sometimes I could be guilty of that too, but 3 to 4 months and then kind of get product and food out of our freezer. So whenever we're also preparing and cooking food properly, we can decrease that risk of foodborne illness. So again, starts at the grocery store when we take home our food and then when we prepare it and even take it home after that. And so we just want to keep in mind all of our process and what we're doing to prevent any foodborne illness. Any questions before we get cooking? Yeah.
Whenever you make like a large amount of something, I always learn from my mother and my mother-in-law,
Yeah.
when it's hot, to let it sit out on the counter until it cools before you put it in the refrigerator. Why is that?
So whenever you leave it to cool on your counter, that's to prevent putting it into your fridge at such a high heat that then it raises the temperature of your fridge. Okay. And so one way to get to kind of overcome that, instead of just leaving food out there for 2+ hours, because sometimes it's a lot. It takes a while to cool down a whole pot of stew or a whole pot of curry. And so we may leave it out longer than 2 hours. So a great recommendation that I've heard is to divide it up into our individual portions and then leave it still without its container and leave it out for 10-20 minutes in individual portions, or put it into the freezer and let it kind of almost quickly freeze or quickly cool down. But before it becomes frozen, before it becomes a full block of soup, pull it out and then put it into your fridge. So just kind of quickly cooling and maybe 10 minutes or 20 minutes out in the freezer, and then you can put it into your fridge. So it doesn't completely go from the 39 degrees to maybe 59 degrees, something like that. We can see a quick rise depending on how much space you have in your fridge too. So just some things to keep in mind. Any other questions? Awesome. So I know we've talked a lot today about food safety. I know this is too a big topic around the holidays, but just some things to keep in mind, and we're taking a different perspective of it this time. So we're gonna jump into our recipe for today. We have our Fiesta bowl. We're focusing on our pico de gallo, which we're doing an apricot. Usually an apricot, we actually have peaches for today. So we're gonna go ahead and get started here by cutting our onion. So I'm going to go ahead, again, not only using that foodborne illness or food safety, but also my kitchen safety here. I'm going to curl my fingers. Make sure I'm not going to cut off a fingertip here. And I'm only going to use half. And then I'm going to start peeling underneath, or peeling out the layer. And I'll show you a quick tip on how the best way to cut an onion when we have it like this. Ooh, okay, not that side. So the best way to cut an onion too, I'm going to cut off this side. So I still have my root side intact, and hopefully you can see with the camera still too. I'm going to keep the root side intact, and I'm going to cut this side here, just so that way I can kind of peel a little bit easier this outer layer. So now, okay, my onion isn't the best, so whenever you see a produce like this too, it's bruised, severely bruised, this is maybe one that we would want to cut this part out, or if it's a very porous type of produce, I would just get rid of this one. But I'm going to continue using it for today. So I peeled off a first layer, and I'm going to keep it together like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm using my claw, I'm going to first create lines, and I'm going to follow the lines on the onion itself, on the red onion. So I don't know if you can kind of see here, I can see ridges, lines. I don't know if you can see here too. There are ridges on the lines. I'm going to just follow that to create my first, but I don't want to cut completely through to the stem. So I'm just going to keep it intact, and this is how we're going to get a quick dice for pico de gallo. So I'm just following our lines. Oop. It's okay if you cut all the way through too. But cut as small as you would want, or as thin as you can, depending on how big you want your onion pieces. Okay, and get rid of this. Alrighty, so now that we went in long slices, I didn't cut the top off. I'm going to turn it 90 degrees. And now I'm going to cut here to create the dice. So just 90 degrees from the angle. We first went long ways, turn 90 degrees. We're going this way. There you go. And then now I'm left with the top of the root. And so I have a perfect dice for my onions. Trying to do it as quick as possible. I always cry with onions. I don't know if anyone else does. So I feel it. Tried going as quick as possible with these guys. All right. And then we ran out of bowls today, so we are using our plates for our Fiesta bowl. I'm just going to go ahead and move this over to our Fiesta bowl. So just one kind of fun fact about this recipe, we do use this recipe for all of our chef, I know the onions are starting to hit me just a little bit, but we do use this recipe for all of our chef curriculum for our adults as well as our children. And so right now, or this week, SAISD is one of our partner schools, and they're going to start with this recipe as well. So it'll be something very similar. Oh, yeah, our garden out front. We also have a very large farmstead out at San Juan Mission, which is just San Juan Mission. Right behind the mission, there's quite a few acres out back. I believe over 30 acres, or over about 20 acres out there too. So we have our onion, and of course onions are going to be a vegetable that we're including for today. We also have Red onions are pretty strong in flavor, so I tried cutting it as small or as fine as I can. But we're gonna mix it all together with our ingredients. So next we have our tomatoes. We had plenty of ingredients today, so everybody gets a full tomato. And so we're gonna go ahead and dice the tomato. Because, again, we went ahead and rinsed these before class. Because our tomatoes are round, similar to our cucumbers last week, what is it that we should probably do for safety?
Oh, wipe off your knife.
Wipe off your knife. You can wipe off your knife in case you have anything on it. I saw some over here.
Make it flat.
Make it flat, right? So we're gonna wanna chop it. So there's a few different ways you could do it. You can go right down the middle. I have also seen chopping off the top, so that way you don't lose as much produce. And then going this way, kind of similar idea to where we're trying to not go all the way through to the bottom. So I'm gonna first cut, now this is for a pro chef, what some of our chefs here, like Chef Greg or Raquel, have taught us. So I'm not as skilled, so I'm gonna show you two different ways. But if we're cutting first vertical, up and down, then I'm gonna lay it down flat, and I'm gonna create longer strips. So now I'm gonna cut, again, vertical this way, using that claw method. Then I'm gonna I'm gonna turn 90 degrees, and now I'm gonna dice this way. So I don't know if you can see up on the camera still too. So we cut this way long ways. I'm gonna turn just to get that good dice. We have our tomatoes. So again, we wash to get rid of any bacteria. Two food products that have plenty of water in them. So like a tomato is gonna be very rich. It's about 94% water. We can also see bacteria growing easily in cut tomatoes. How are our tomatoes coming? You're coming along? Oh, good. Alrighty. Okay. And then if you wanted to, so just a few extra steps, you could also cut around this kind of the belly button if you really wanted to save all your extra pieces, or if you compost at home, you could just throw that into your compost too. I'm going to go ahead and add that to my pico. Alrighty. So now that we have those two ingredients, we're going to take our apricots, but this time we're using peaches. So you could really, I know Bronte said earlier you do mangoes. So any type of fresh fruit. Again, we're using stone fruit mainly, like those peaches, apricots. You can do the mango. Again, offers really great flavor to it. And here, depending on how much juice you want, we didn't strain it too much. So if you didn't want as much juice, you could just drain it out just a little and rinse it. It was in 100% fruit juice. And I'm sorry, 100 of its own juice. It was in its own juice. So whenever we do get a canned product, a canned produce, always giving it a quick rinse is a great way to reduce the sugar, reduce the sodium in it too. So we didn't have any apricots. They're a little bit harder to come by, so instead we have these peaches. And I actually want all the juice that it's in, so I'm just gonna leave it as is and mix it all together.
Oh, they're already cut up.
Yes, they're already cut up. So I'm just gonna keep it as is. Alrighty, who's ready for this fun part with our jalapenos? I love jalapenos. They're so fun, but they definitely can have a good kick, especially when we're de-seeding. So best to always put our gloves on. So I'm gonna put on our gloves.
Yeah, especially if you wear contacts.
Yes, if you wear contacts, or if you're putting makeup on or taking makeup off later on in the day, probably best to make sure you're using your gloves. So I'm gonna pull our jalapeno, and to cut a jalapeno, I'm gonna just cut the top off again to make it a little bit more flat. And I am gonna cut straight through the middle. So let's see here. Actually, I'll keep it down. I'm gonna cut through the middle so that way I can get to our juicy seeds. So here we go. This is also another great reason why we're using our gloves. So you can use one of the containers that we had the apricots in, or peaches in. And I'm gonna first use my knife to get rid of the ribbing on the inside. So using my knife, I'm gonna cut just from one side to the other, just to get the very top of it off. So how are we doing with our jalapenos? I see a few of us. So I just took the top off, and then I'm gonna pull off the rest using the gloves. Thankfully, I'm gonna pull out the rest of our seeds, a little bit more of the ribbing. The seeds are always gonna have the most spice. That's where all of the concentration is at.
There is actually a tool too that you can buy,
Uh-huh.
and you just cut the top off of the jalapeno.
Uh-huh.
It looks like a square, and it's
Ooh.
serrated around it.
Uh-huh.
You put it in there, and that way, when you're making stuffed jalapenos,
Yep.
it does all the seeding and everything for you, and then it leaves it whole.
It leaves it complete. You don't have to cut into it. I love that.
You cut it in the center and put
And
your
you
stuff on.
and you're set.
So it's a really cool tool.
Yes. Oh, I love that. That's awesome.
Next time I come, so I can show it.
Yes, you'll have to show us. So I love the tool that you're sharing. It's a serrated type of core almost, it sounds like, and you can go in, just cut the top. You don't even have to cut into your jalapeno. I love that.
And it's about this long, and it just
Yeah, that's fantastic. We're going to be a little bit more risky today cutting with our knives and taking out all the seeds. So for those that are a little bit ahead too, you've already de-seeded your jalapeno. We're going to, similar to what we've been doing, we're going to dice. So you're going to want to cut long ways, turn 90 degrees, and then cut smaller. So again, we're just trying to get, depending on how much flavor you want in one bite, smaller is going to probably be the better option. There you go. So how often, or who here usually works with like peppers? Any type of peppers? Peppers? They do grill quite well too. If you can.
everything grows out of the compost, even out of seeds.
Really? That's fantastic.
But they never come to fruitation
Mm.
because of the fact that they genetically modify the seeds, so they're sterile.
Yep. So it does take a little bit more special care. Yeah. Gotcha.
Makes you wonder, why locally Frankenstein are food?
Genetically modified ingredients. Yeah, sometimes you can grow straight from those seeds. It just depends.
I think they just people want fast and
But you think about why would they make fruits and vegetables seeds sterile? So you know what I mean?
yeah.
The food industry is quite an interesting environment to be in, to see the production of side.
But we need our stuff in the first, to breathe and
Very much so. Very much so. Alrighty, so now that we have our jalapenos diced, I'm going to go ahead and add that into our pico, and I'm going to give it a nice stir. So we're getting lots of great colors with our pico today. We have our red from the tomatoes. We got a little bit of our orange from the peaches, a little bit of purple as well. Does anyone remember too the kind of the rainbow that we talk about of vitamins and minerals? Does anyone remember the rainbow? So I know we always talk about it, eat the rainbow, right? We hear that probably as early in grade school. Why do we eat the rainbow? And it's not Skittles, I promise it's not Skittles. So we eat the rainbow, or we aim for the rainbow, because every color on our food provides a different vitamin or mineral. So the red that we're seeing, again, tied to vitamin A, some lycopene in it too. Our phytonutrients. We have some greens. Again, every color is going to offer different vitamins and minerals for us. Alrighty. I'm going to take my gloves off so that way I don't get any more jalapeno juice or the oil throughout the rest of our dish. Alrighty. So we're going to bring all our flavors together with a few seasonings as well as with some lime juice. So we have a whole lime here. And I'm going to just roll our lime out so that way we can get lots of flavor and juices coming out of it. Thank you, Rachel Ray, for this tip. I remember watching her around 10 years old, and she just talked about rolling our limes to get our juice out of it. I'm going to cut right down the middle. I'm going to do about half of the lime. Ooh. So if you don't have a lime at home, what other item would you use for some citrus for the flavor? If you don't have lime at home, what would you want to use? Lemon? Orange? I love that idea. How about anyone, like just a little bit of orange juice? Yeah? You? Lemons over lime? Yeah. Gotcha. And then, here we go. We have our seasonings too. But the best part is that recipes like this, you can make it your own. This kind of reminds me of like a homemade Chipotle bowl almost, or a burrito bowl. So you can make it your own, change up different ingredients. That's a fun part of it. All right. So next we have our seasonings. So we have a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin, dried oregano, chili powder, garlic powder, onion powder, black pepper, and then a little bit of salt as well too. So it's all mixed together in one. You can give it a nice quick shake. I'm gonna add to the top. We're gonna mix in our rice and beans as well with it. Oh, but before I forget, we also have some cilantro. So we have plenty of cilantro to go around. So I know, I think I hear Gail saying a little bit too. So cilantro, actually about, I believe it's like 10% of the population actually, cilantro will taste soapy to them. So if you're one of those people where you're eating the cilantro and it tastes different, it tastes soapy, you may be a rare few of about 10% of the population in the whole world that tastes a soap cilantro. So it just depends. So there's a few different ways we can go about our cilantro. You can either pick off some of the leaves and then use it as a garnish. You could also pick off a few and cut, chop them up, roughly chop them to mix into our pico today. Or,
I'm sorry, did you use the whole of it or half?
I used half, but you can use the whole too if you want it all. Another way is to first chop off the stems. We are going to get a little bit of the stems in it, but I took off the majority of the bottom here. And then you can cut, bunch up all together. Actually, I'm going to bunch it up just a little bit more. So I'm going to bunch all of my cilantro together using the column method. I even kind of folded it in on itself, and I'm going to do a rough chop. Remember from last week, we talked about that rocking motion with the knife. So we're keeping the front part of our knife on the mat and cutting the rest. So I am gonna do another rock chop like this, back and forth, depending on how large you want your cilantro. I'm gonna add these pieces. Yes, ma'am, half a lime. Oh, no worries, you're good. Yeah, that's true. You can skip the cilantro. Alrighty, so I'm just doing a nice rock chop, trying to get it a little bit smaller.
I just tasted the cilantro and I'm one of those that tastes like soap.
Does it taste like soap to you? Oh no. So it's based on your taste buds. From my understanding, it's that those 10% of the population, your taste buds have a different combination or it tastes it in a different way. It's my understanding. Mm-hmm. This is true. You never know. You never know. Exactly. Okay, so I'm adding my cilantro right in. I'm going to give everything a quick toss. And then I'm going to add in my rice and beans. So usually we'd want to heat up our rice and our beans. It's been within our 2-hour time frame, so I feel confident in eating our rice and beans still. But I'm first creating our pico and then mix in the rice and beans. How's it coming with everyone? Good? I got you. So that's why if you're very particular about the stems of cilantro, you can sit there and take off every leaf. If it's all right, I still try to take off the bottom and then just use very, very little in it too. But a little can go a long way is what I meant. There you go. All right, so now we have our pico nice mixed in. The peaches to give us a little bit of sweetness and flavor. And then again, to all of our lime and our spices all mixed in. And I'm just gonna add our bowl to finish off. So we have our rice and our beans. Thankfully, too, we also have some Tupperware to take all of our extras home with us today. So we can use all of this as some Tupperware. Do we have chips? I know that's the only thing we needed was some chips. So that is our queso fresco. So that's going to be our very last our ingredients. Queso fresco. Yeah. Who's familiar with queso fresco? Now you are? Yeah? A few hands? What was that? Ooh, yes. Some elote corn in a cup or elote en vaso. So good. They do have it at the rodeo, which is fantastic to see. Mm-hmm. It is. So that type of cheese, it has a higher moisture content. So again, it can go bad pretty quickly. We kind of have to use it quick, or if not, throw it out.
And it comes in a big round block.
It's usually a round block. And we'll see a few different versions of it too, the queso fresco. So just kind of keeping an eye. So now that I have a huge heaping plate load, I'm gonna mix it all together. Again, to make our whole Fiesta bowl. So you can eat it warm, eat it cold, maybe heat the rice and beans, and then keep the pico cold. Today we're gonna eat it all cold. It's definitely okay. Again, we're within those 2 hours. And then before you take a bite, I see a few. What do we think? I love it. What do you think? I see actually a few that have taken a bite. Good. What would you add anything different to it? No. Chicken? So that's what I was thinking too. Is like, yeah. Ooh, avocado. That sounds great. Burgers. I love that idea. Ooh, you can use, yeah. The jalapeno. I love it. So you can keep the pico on its own without the rice and beans. Adding the rice and beans almost makes it like a complete side. It has a bunch of not only, or a whole meal on its own. So the really great thing about rice and beans, pairing them, they're a complete protein. They have all 20 of our essential amino acids in it, so they pair very nicely. That's why we see them always paired together in our Mexican cuisines. So it's wonderful. But again, too, we're pretty set. You could add chicken because right now we're talking about 2/3 to 1/3, right? We have no animal products. We're going to add, I don't think this is going to add up to about 1/3 of our plate. It is pretty tiny compared to the rest of it. Yes, we're adding it last. So what I'm doing with our queso fresco now is usually we'd put it in a bag, but this is pretty soft. So I'm just going to go ahead and crumble it all on top. And so there we go. I love the idea of adding some chicken on it, fish, whatever you're feeling, whatever you have extra for the week. Yep. Yeah, some extra protein to it. And then too, again, we're talking about the food safety, so 3 to 5 days. You can eat this eat it for lunch today, have some for dinner tomorrow, maybe lunch the next day, kind of alternate it throughout your week. So this is, again, following our 2/3 to 1/3, our New American plate. We're putting in all of what we've learned about food safety. We're trying to make sure to be extra cautious with it. So with all of our ingredients. So now that we have made our Fiesta bowl, hopefully we can enjoy. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask and I'll be here. But thank you for today.